And we're live!
What up, ladies and gentlemen? Look, everybody has money problems, and now with COVID, some of those
Even
problems might be a
worse.
little bit tougher. Let's find out how we can take care of those today.
Yeah!
Shut up and sit down.
The Business Bros Podcast was created for you. Learn from the business professionals who come to share their stories. Find out what's working in business, on social media, what's hot and what's not, straight from the mouths of successful entrepreneurs out there doing the real work. And now, welcome to another episode of
Business Bros! All right, let's rock and roll. Ladies and gents, today is one of my favorite days. It is SHIT.
So happy it's Thursday!
James, drop the intro, my man.
Yeah! Okay, so our guest today is the perfect fit for the Business Bros Pod. After spending 8 years in professional sports and 7 years in commercial real estate, our guest found her calling in being of service to others. This wicked smart financial pro has been a Dave Ramsey preferred coach for the past half decade, using her knowledge to navigate people out of debt, help establish a plan, and guide them into their own version of financial peace for a more stable future and carefree life. She has experience leading the Financial Peace University, Smart Money, Smart Kids, and the Legacy Journey. We're super excited to learn from her today. So without further ado, joining us from Grace Financial Coaching, welcome to the show, Suzanne Johnson! Woo, woo, woo!
How about that
intro?
I love it. I love your guys' intro. It makes me so happy. It doesn't matter who's on. I just get so happy.
Good, then we're doing something right.
You're doing something right, yeah.
All right, Suzanne, it's time to get into it, the nitty gritty. I want to know a little bit about your background. I'm fascinated with the fact that you had pro sports under your belt, you had commercial real estate under your belt, and you went into the Dave Ramsey thing. Come on, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was, so I'm going to start with a very old business adage. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Ain't that the truth, right?
Absolutely.
So when I was growing up on Long Island, I happened to have a uncle who had a neighbor who had a friend, and they happened to work for one of the professional hockey teams in New York. There are 3 of them, technically, 2 of them, if you're familiar with the downstate geography of New York. And I ended up working with one of those organizations for over 8 years. And I spent most of my time with their farm team, which I found invaluable because when you're not the main card, you're not the top card of the show, there's a lot of stuff you have to do to kind of keep interest, build up your fan base. So it was not just walking into a building and having 20, 30, 40,000 fans in front of you. We really had to keep working at it to keep our fan base. I took that knowledge of the sports industry and events, and I turned it into actually specifically mall management. I worked for one of the biggest mall owners in the country for many years. And then I moved out to San Diego, and I was able to team up with a third-party property management company. So I spent the last several years in commercial real estate, which touches everything. You don't realize how often and how frequently you're touched by the things that are happening in commercial real estate. And I think this pandemic, as we were talking about earlier, really plays into that, because your favorite stores have been closed, your favorite restaurants have been closed, your malls have been closed. Nobody's seen the inside of a movie theater in however many weeks, to 8, 10, 12 weeks. So that's all commercial real estate based.
Fine by me.
Touch.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to
Exactly.
mention that. We dropped movie clips right in the middle of your conversation. Sorry about that. I forgot to tell you.
No, I did know that, but I wasn't prepared for it. Shame on me. So I've kept in touch with a lot of my commercial real estate friends. And during this pandemic, and as we get out of the pandemic and we leave shut down and we go into phase 1 and phase 2 and all these fun terms that we've never heard before, there's a lot of stuff that's affecting commercial real estate, but there's also a lot of stuff that's affecting your personal finances. And I'm sure you guys have experienced some of those things over the last 6, 8, 9, 12 weeks.
Oh, it's been crazy on, my background, I teach during the day, right? So fortunately for my wife and I, the paychecks didn't stop. We had to shift the way we were doing something, but it didn't stop. And for our household budget, it's actually been a very good thing. I wasn't able to go out and buy fast food. I wasn't able to go out and buy those little knick-knack things. Amazon kind of did get a little boost from us. I got to admit there, right? But for the most part, we were able to save more money during COVID than we did in a regular time period. But you're absolutely right. Our business, for example, we're doing things completely different. The end of this month, we are not renewing our lease. That is going to affect the landlord that we were renting our office building from. And I don't know how many other tenants in other industries are going to be doing the same thing, because we found a more efficient way to operate, and we don't actually need that space anymore. We can continue to run business as usual. In fact, probably better going forward. But on the flip side, we have clients that aren't able to pay their insurance premiums. We have clients that are struggling on that month-to-month basis. And we're seeing, we have James tracks all our sales processes throughout for all our agents. And we were just reviewing this yesterday. We're looking at deals that didn't close. And the reason why they didn't close is because the customer doesn't have money. And that's a tough situation to be in. So I'm sure you've been bombarded with people saying, help. What do I do? What advice are you giving them?
Yeah, so it's been a weird time for myself as a financial coach, and really just anybody as a financial coach. We're not competitive with each other. There's a whole Facebook group of us out there, almost 1,000. We're almost eclipsing 1,000 Facebook people who are financial coaches, and we speak to one another. We don't use any clients' names, but we will put stuff out there and we'll say, hey, I've got a client ABC who's dealing with XYZ. They can't pay their insurance premiums. They can't pay their office rent. They're not even sure if they're going to be able to pay their home rent or their mortgage next month. And so we've seen some really crazy stuff we didn't think we were going to ever see, unless there was a major economic collapse. And even then, no one could have gone back in time and told us that this major economic collapse would have been pushed through a pandemic and then forced through an economic shutdown. So a lot of times we're talking with each other about how we can help other clients. I would say the most frequent question that I have been getting from new or people who are coming in and becoming prospective clients is not so much a question as it is a statement. I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to go through what I just saw my neighbor go through. I don't want to go through what I just saw my brother and sister-in-law go through. So it's actually not even a question. It's actually more of an affirmative statement. And they're saying, I'm now seeing what this can do. Like you, obviously, I know you're a teacher and that paycheck, thank God, was coming through on a normal basis. But there are people who have that paycheck like you do, and they're seeing their next neighbor not have that paycheck come through. And so it's really more of an affirmative statement. Like, I am going to take action now so that I am not that person in the future. And that's actually a lot of what I'm getting at my doorstep right now, believe it or not. There is a small percentage of people who are contacting me saying, I can't pay my insurance premiums, I can't pay my rent, I can't feed my family. And we do have a very specific protocol that we go through for those people that involves 4 walls of your budget: food, shelter, transportation, and utilities. And those are literally the 4 things that we will say, stop paying everything else and just focus on those things. And that includes your debt. If you have credit card debt, if you have consumer debt, if you have student loan debt, we will actually recommend people stop paying on that temporarily, because you need to feed your family. You need to shelter your family. You need to be able to get to point A and point B of whatever part-time job you have, whatever full-time job you have left that hasn't furloughed you. We need to get you from point A to point B. We need you to have electricity. We need you to have food on the table. So it does seem counterintuitive for a financial coach to tell you to stop paying on your debt, but in these crazy times, I've had to administer that advice.
So it's what you're explaining is like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there's certain things that we need to take care of primarily, and there's other things that they may be damaging, but they're not the difference between surviving and not surviving. And that's a concept that's huge in the Dave Ramsey world. James and I often have this conversation a lot. Do we follow the Dave Ramsey model? Do we follow the Kiyosaki model, right? Do we take on any leveraged debt to increase our financial status, or do we pay everything off and, have zero debt going forward? Show me the money! Right? We're always bouncing ideas off each other for that purpose. And it's funny because you can look at things in hindsight. Like if you had been following this Dave Ramsey model, even if you have rental properties, when the market tanks and the market shifts and cycles go up and cycles go down, when you have zero debt, when you have no consumer debt, when you have no student loan debt, no auto debt, it's much easier to push through these downward cycles than if you're leveraged, right? When you're leveraged, you have some of these debts, and yes, you have tenants that pay the mortgage, and yes, you have cash flow coming in. But when you hit those economic cycles and you have vacancies, for example, or you have tenants that are in the place like we're going through now, this is obviously one of those unique situations, but they can't pay their rent. That hurts you, and now you're in a position where you are deciding which bill you're going to pay. How did you decide that the Dave Ramsey model was the one that you wanted to go to? And how do you argue that whole leverage question when building wealth?
Absolutely. So the Dave Ramsey model was the one for me. Actually, while I was just entering the commercial real estate world, because as you point out, the commercial real estate world leverages a lot. I actually have an immediate family member, not married to them, but I won't tell you how I'm related, who works for one of the major banking corporations that you guys see on the front of the Wall Street Journal every day. And when that person is trading in commodities and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and things like that in an upward market, right, in a bull market, that person will say to me, well, it's okay that this company has some debt because we're in a bull market, basically. Mm-hmm. And then when we're in a bear market, that person will be like, well, I don't have my clients invest in them anymore because, it's a bear market right now and that company's carrying debt. So you're never going to please everyone. So just so you guys are aware, you can do whatever you want, but you're never going to please everyone out there. But for me, Dave, the reason the Dave Ramsey model stuck is because I did it. Mm-hmm. I personally went through it. Someone paid for me to go through the class that is usually administered by a church or a real estate office or an insurance office. I've even done it for insurance companies. And I went through that class. And when I left, I said, I'm getting a financial coach. I paid off over $90,000 in 3 years by myself. I was single.
Let me ask you something. When you do finally get to yell out that debt-free scream, I mean, it's more than just a scream. Like, you literally feel like there's a weight lifted off your shoulders. You don't have to look over your back. I mean, not like anybody was going to come get you, but you feel that way, right?
Absolutely. The last thing that I paid off, I didn't have a lot of student loans, so I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but the last thing I paid off was the stupid student loans because I had been working at it and working at it and working at it. I got it small enough that I had all these other little consumer debts, but it was just it was nagging out there. And Dave makes this joke that like your student loans stick around so long that you think they're a pet and you name them. And I remember where I was when I literally went like this on my computer and it was paid off. Now, technically, they still had to send me a piece of paper. They still had to send me a PDF and a piece of paper in the mail saying it was paid off. And I literally went like this. I was like, yes!
But that's one of those things, right?
I was so happy.
And now, I mean, in the Dave Ramsey model, I mean, he even says, one of the debts that you're allowed to have is your mortgage. But even then, you can structure yourself to be able to pay that really freaking quick. And for most people, what you don't understand is if your house is paid off, you don't have to wait till you're 65. And we say this all the time, retirement is not an age problem. It's a cash flow problem. And you can literally lower your expenses by paying off a lot of these debt obligations. And if you didn't have to pay your $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 mortgage payment every month, what kind of life would you lead? I mean, it would be completely different. The fact that you get up and clock in at your 9 to 5, you would even reconsider doing that if you had your home paid off. This is one of those things why if you focus your attention on doing that, does it suck while you're trying to pay that off? You know what? It does. It's not the easiest thing. It takes discipline. It takes commitment, right? You're going to focus on doing that one thing. You're not going to be going on super extravagant vacations and all that stuff. But when it's done, you have such freedom going forward.
That's good. One less thing.
Exactly.
Love it. Oh my God, I'm going to use that, by the way. Stealing that. One of the things I tell my clients, though, is I want you to have a debt-free, stress-free life, but I want you to have a life while you're doing this. So one of the ways that I have my clients go on vacations, now they might not be 4-month taking a sabbatical vacations into Europe or wherever you want to go, but I still want you to go on 3-day weekends. I still want you to go away for a week with your family that has been planning XYZ vacation to some resort or some cruise line for the last 2 years. I still want you to do that. So the way that we do that is we utilize sinking funds. And sinking funds have literally changed some of my clients' lives in a matter of one session to the next session.
You're going to have to clarify what a sinking fund is, because I mean, my background's in accounting. Yeah, my background's in accounting. And if I just say sinking funds to somebody, they think it's the worst thing in the world. What the hell is that? Like, that sounds like it's horrible. It sounds like the Titanic or something. So help elaborate what a sinking fund is.
I was literally going to say one of my most popular blog posts is what the heck is a sinking fund? And the picture I have on it is of the Titanic.
What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
That's hilarious. I cannot believe you just said that. So a sinking fund is when you literally, and by the way, having a commercial real estate background, I tend to over-explain it sometimes too. But the easiest way for me to explain it is that a sinking fund is when you sink money into something over time. So if we're building up, the easiest example I can use right now is we're saving up for a long weekend and you're going to be traveling a little bit, maybe driving 500 miles, and you know that you're going to need about $2,000 to $2,200 between lodging, maybe food's included where you're going, but you're gonna be paying for drinks and you're probably gonna buy a couple souvenirs. So let's just say you need like $2,000 and your family tells you you're going on this vacation. It's a little bit of a family reunion, so you don't want to miss it. You want to start saving now. So how are you going to save $2,000, $2,200 over 10 months? You're going to take the number that you need and you're going to divide it by the amount of time you have to save it up. And you're going to see if it's possible. Now, during that period of time, are you going to have to make sacrifices somewhere else? Sure. And if you're paying down a 15-year mortgage, which could be a little bit more money, might not always be, interest rates are weird right now, it may take a little bit of sacrifice. But that little bit of sacrifice over 10 months, 12 months, 8 months is so worth the feeling of coming back from a fully paid for vacation with your family or your friends or just your immediate family. You don't have a credit card to pay off after that.
Exactly. And here's the thing. It's words, right? The way we use words have a completely different meaning. I don't know about you, but going uphill sounds much more difficult than going downhill, right? And so when you say things like I'm saving up for something, right? It sounds like such a feat that I'm never going to get to. It takes forever to save up for something. But if I'm paying down, if I have this sinking fund and I'm putting down my money and I'm paying down this amount that I need to put away, it's a little bit easier, right? It's a little bit easier to get things squared away, to put that to, I guess like a little squirrel fund or whatever store away for the winter, whatever it's going to be. But putting that, using those little words and kind of twisting what you say to yourself in your own mind gives you that little extra push when that discipline gets tough to do, right?
That's new.
That's new.
I like that. I semi-interrupted you. I thought you were about done with your thing there. My bad. But hey, it's time for Ham's Insurance Tip of the Day. Anybody heard of a collision deductible waiver? Ever heard of that? Anybody have any idea what that is?
I have, but I cheat.
You're kind of involved.
Stuff.
All right. Well, here we go. Collision deductible waiver. Just for a quick explanation, what this is. Wait, did I do this one already?
Keep going.
I think I did this one already.
Stop.
Oh, man.
Going. Keep
Well,
going.
hey, it's on. We're doing it again because it's that important. I believe in it that much, and I'm surprised how many times people don't have it. And the reason why I did it again is because it came up again. Somebody else didn't have it, and really quick and easy. It's anywhere from $2 to $12 every 6 months. So super, super cheap. You got to have it on your policy. If somebody rear ends you and they don't have insurance, you're going to want to have this collision deductible waiver. That way you don't have to pay your deductible from your policy because that other person didn't have insurance. And for those of you that are out there saying, well, everybody has insurance, it's required by law, blah, 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 blah. Not true. It's still anywhere from 7 to 17% of the population driving around without insurance, especially right now after COVID. People don't have the money. People are leaving their insurance payments not to get paid. So it's happening more and more. People are not carrying insurance the way that they should. Make sure that you protect your car, protect yourself, so you don't have to come out of pocket. Get your collision deductible waiver added to your policy. Super, super inexpensive, and it's going to save you a big headache later on down the line. All right. Did it again, but it's cool. That's Ham's insurance tip of the day. Follow me on Twitter at InsuranceBroHam.
Love it. I love those little transitions. It's going to make our show so much funner and easier to follow. So,
I will
love it.
tell you, though, that I actually just wrote down that stat. The 7 to 17% of people out there don't have auto or collision insurance. And I think it's very timely that for some reason he said that twice, because someone out there needed to hear it again. And someone out there is going to be prevented from having an auto accident with a driver that doesn't have insurance because they heard that tip. So
it's Murphy's Law. It's Murphy's Law. We're
totally
in COVID right now, right? And you're strapped for cash. This is the exact time that your tire blows randomly, that somebody rear ends you because you don't have the cash to do it. You don't have things. Everything's lined up against you. It's a whirlwind, spiraling downhill. What can go wrong will go wrong. So, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
All right, Suzanne, let's do a little something. Let's do 2 truths and a lie. Ready?
Ooh.
All right, we're going to add James back in here. So let's see if we can guess your 2 truths and a lie.
All righty. So here are my 2 truths and a lie, and not in that order. I am former military. I own my own Harley Davidson, and I have 2 pit bulls.
Let's see. I'm gonna say the pit bull thing is true because I saw a dog. I didn't see if it was a pit bull, but I did see a dog. Let's see.
I'm gonna say definitely a vet.
Truth or a lie?
The vet part is a lie.
Truth?
My husband is active duty Navy.
I know.
So
I know.
That means she rides a Harley.
That's awesome. Me too.
Do you
Heritage
really?
Softail. I do. Yeah.
No way. That's my favorite bike, actually. I have a 1200 Sportster,
Nice.
but my goal bike is a Heritage Softail, actually.
Oh God, I love it.
Yep.
Absolutely
It is
love
the
it.
greatest thing ever. Oh, and by the way, it's paid off. Just
Woo
saying.
woo.
Yeah, we're working on that with James. It's funny because he's actually working not exactly Dave Ramsey plan, but he's got his accelerator. He's working his debt the same type of way, and it's one of those things where life happens, right? Like we were on a good path, and then things happen in life, and he kind of had to take a left turn, but now he's working his way back, and so it's one of those things where if something happens along the way. I mean, we've all been there. Broke is temporary, poor is eternal. It's a mindset thing. If you can change that mindset, you're going to put yourself in the right direction. We fall off the horse, get back on, and you keep going. Or in this case, don't fall off the Harley, but just keep going. Right?
Please don't.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Awesome.
Yeah, please don't fall off the Harley, James. I'm begging
No,
you.
no. Rubber side down.
All right, let me
Exactly.
embarrass James one more time because we came to he came back from the East Coast after he got out of the military, and I think actually what, this is after you went on your road trip lifestyle on the RV,
Living in the RV.
living in the RV.
Ooh.
So he
That was
came to
fun.
my house and he was going to park the RV on the side of the house and he's towing the bike. And so we're going to take the bike off this trailer, right?
Oh God.
And you know, we're not the smartest dudes in the world here when it comes to some of this stuff. And he had this idea and I was like, he looked at me, he's like, "You think it's going to work?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, it'll work." I'm pulling the bike off and it just goes falls over to the side and he just that's exactly how we felt.
Oh my God. That video was perfect though, because I have seen so many veteran bike riders, like they've been riding for like longer than I've been alive. And when you're slow or you're trying to park or you're trying to come out of like an incline or a decline or something like that, I have seen so many bikes just literally sit there and just go over slowly. That's the worst time to be on your bike.
Oh yeah, it happens. Or you could be
Painful.
like me, where I don't ride a bike, and we would have guests at our house doing the podcast, and so we're talking to a guest outside. James pulls up on the bike, and we're conversating out there, and for whatever reason, I get on his bike and sit down, and I'm wearing shorts, and my leg hits the tailpipe. And I just get up real fast and he looks at me like, "You're an idiot, dude. Like, what were you thinking?" I was like, "Man, I wasn't thinking. It just happened."
So Hernan, you would be one of those guys on a Harley in shorts and flip-flops.
Oh no, first of all, I would never get on a Harley, period. I'm not a bike rider. I prefer 4 wheels and a big vehicle to shelter myself. Yes, a big cage. But I don't know why I sat on his bike and it burnt. Like I have the war wound on my leg to this day, just to remind myself of what an idiot I was.
That is amazing.
It happens. It happens, man. All right, Suzanne. I want to get back to a little bit about the COVID stuff. We started off the conversation talking about how we have businesses that are shutting down. People haven't been inside of a movie theater for a while. And you talk to a lot of people in the finance space. So I'm wondering, what's your opinion of the next, 12 to 24 months in our economic cycle? Like, what's the forecast that you're seeing? And then after you share yours, I'll share what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a client ask a very poignant question the other day, and they said, I was watching so-and-so person who talks about stocks and they're very highly regarded, and they flat out just said, "I don't know what's going to happen." And my client was very concerned. This particular client still has some debt to pay off, but they're really looking forward to starting to invest in retirement. They may even do a little bit of training on their own. We're going to set a budget for that, obviously. But they were shocked to see some of these veteran stock brokers, stock traders, stock guys that you see on MSNBC, NBC, and Bloomberg say, "I have no idea what's going to happen." The stock market was up over 9,000 points from the end of March last week. If you tell me you know what's going to happen, you don't. And that's the problem. No one knows what's going to happen right now. So we need to prepare as if Murphy is knocking on our back door, like you mentioned earlier. We need to have the emergency fund in place. We need to have maybe even a more robust emergency fund in place. We need to take care of those 4 walls of our budget. Food and shelter may seem obvious, but I want to make it clear that people need to prioritize their rent and their mortgage over their credit cards and over their student loans. If someone calls me in 6 months and they're defaulting on their credit card, I don't give a crap. I really don't. I want you to have a house. I want you to have shelter over your head. I want you to have a roof over your head. I want you to tell me that 6 months ago you had to make the decision between putting food on the table and paying Visa. Mm-hmm. And I hope you put food on the table instead of paid Visa. We can work through delinquent credit card payments. We can work through delinquent student loans. But I really want to emphasize that people need to focus on their 4 walls: food, shelter, transportation, and utilities during this time. And as we come out of this pandemic and as people are starting to get jobs. The latest job report was great, which makes us all feel very happy as financial coaches. But we still want to be a little conservative in our spending. We want to be a little conservative in our saving because we want to be prepared for the worst at this point.
Yeah, what was the latest employment numbers? It was like 13 million or something unemployed. And
Right.
it's funny that we say that's great because that's actually horrible. It's just great compared to the 22 million that it was last month, right?
Right.
So we have a drastic improvement. It's just a different type of situation that we're dealing with. So my economic forecast, right? I keep telling people because I get people who ask me about the real estate market. Is the real estate market going to tank? Is it going to tank? And I always preface the same thing you do. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. All I can tell you is what I read when I read the data, when I see the stories, when I see what's going on. This is how I interpret that information. We still have 13 million unemployed. Right? We have people who have gone through the forbearance period in their mortgages. I know last month, 2 million people didn't pay their mortgages, right? Whether or not we're not calling it a default yet. However, if things don't change, when those forbearance periods end, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, or 9 month, or even some of those 12-month forbearance periods, that's when we're going to start seeing a shift in things because those forbearance missed payments become defaults. And then after they become defaults, it's hard to catch up. And when it's hard to catch up, you start heading into short sales and foreclosures. Now, because of the forbearance period, I don't think that's going to happen until fourth quarter this year, maybe first quarter of next year. And even then, if the market shifts in a downward trend because people are forced to sell their homes, they're in a position where they have to sell versus want to sell. So you start undercutting people on the market who are there that want to sell. It's still going to be one of those situations where you never know. Interest rates could be pushed lower again and might fuel a little bit of at least a stability, maybe a stagnant market. I don't know exactly, but I do know that these numbers that we're looking at, we're right now we're putting band-aids on a hemorrhaging wound in our economy. So things are going to shift. They could shift up. They could shift down. Like you said, the S&P recovered every one of its losses, every point of its losses since the beginning of COVID recently. So you don't know what's going to happen. The same thing that's happening in the personal lines.
But they lost a good chunk today, FYI.
I didn't see that today. Dang.
Just saying.
Such is life, right?
Just
Such is
throwing it
life.
out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, there was a 6% loss, maybe something like that. It was pretty good.
The volatility is fun, though, if you're an options trader.
Yeah, it is.
If you're bored, it's great.
If you're bored, it's great. Yeah,
You know?
exactly. If you're getting up 6 a.m, East Coast time. But still, the same thing, right? So you got commercial people that are doing the same thing. What you're seeing in the real estate market on the personal level, you're seeing on the commercial side, people who can't pay their rents. So I personally see a downturn towards the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year. But that's one man's personal opinion, right? I don't know the facts. We don't know what's going. The best thing you can do is, like you said, prepare. Just be prepared. So if people want to get a hold of you, we have your website right here, scrolling on the bottom, gracefinancialcoaching.com. We got your Instagram right there at Grace Financial Coach. You mentioned the 4 walls and helping people out. I'm sure it kind of went over people's heads, what those 4 walls are. Is there anything you can offer our audience as far as, when they reach out to you to get more information?
Absolutely. And actually, I wasn't planning on doing this, but as you started talking, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a book giveaway.
Boom.
So if anybody wants to contact me, it could be via Instagram, via Twitter, all that nonsense, my website. If you guys want to set up a free 40-minute strategy session, and really what that is literally 40 minutes of my time to go over what you're dealing with financially right now and see if what you're doing is the best strategy. You don't have to even give me your email address. You don't have to give me anything. We'll just sit there and we'll talk for 40 minutes about what's going on in your life right now financially, and if you're moving forward in the right direction. If you have no direction, I'll advise you on a direction for sure. And if you guys mentioned the Business Bros podcast, I will let you choose between 2 books: Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover or Chris Hogan's Retire Inspired. I love that book because it is a compilation of people who just literally they didn't inherit $1 million. They didn't win the lottery. They just saved over time, and they were diligent over time, and they prospered because of that diligence over time. And they are now everyday millionaires in their retirement. So if you mention the Business Bros podcast when you set up your strategy session on my website, you will get your choice of a free book.
I love that. Just so you know, I've never read that Chris Hogan book. I'm going to have to check it out on Audible. I'm going to put that on my to-do list, on my to-read list, I should say. But anything that you get from Dave Ramsey or his daughter Rachel Cruz, all of their content, it doesn't matter. It is some great stuff. So if you have the opportunity to grab a free copy of the book, even, I don't know what else to say other than if you can get 40 minutes of somebody helping you out. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. When I was like 16, 17 years old, my dad hired a financial advisor to come to the house and share with us, sit down and talk to us. And we didn't have a lot of money. What we knew about money when we were younger is that we didn't have it. That was the extent of our knowledge for when it came to funds. But this lady sat down with us and she shared with us, this is a budget and this is what you should be doing to put your money away. And we had an idea that we were going to move out, grab an apartment and split the rent and we would be good. And she dropped that little idea in our head that why rent an apartment when you can buy a house? And because of that simple advice, and mind you, my dad cut a check to somebody and he didn't, it was expensive for us at the time, but it was well worth it. He knew the value in that consultation. Because of that, James and I bought our first house when we were 19 and 20 years old. So, it's not that you can't do things. You just may not know how yet. And we have Suzanne here with her company, with Grace Financial Coaching. You guys can get a little bit of help. Just point you in the right direction. Even if you don't stick to it, having that guiding post. I mean, right now you're in a desert island and you have no idea which direction to go. But if somebody can point you in a direction, at least you have a chance, right? At least you have a shot.
Suzanne, your father, that investment, however much he paid that woman back, you're only 20. So, that was like,
I was like last year.
Right?
Yeah. It happened just recently. So, that's
but man,
cool.
That is huge. And just that, $100 or $200 that your dad gave that woman, man, that just changed the trajectory of your life. That is unbelievable.
And that's exactly what you can help other people do. And that's the power of why we do the whole podcast game. That's the whole reason why we have different guests on the show. And like you said, when James duplicated his Ham's insurance tip, you were absolutely right. Sometimes people hear a message but aren't ready to receive the message. So today might be the day that you get to receive that message and you're ready to accept it and it's part of your life. Something might have happened to you. So you can definitely go in a new direction if you want to. When you know better, you do better. Absolutely right.
Love that.
Absolutely 100% correct. Suzanne, I want to thank you for taking time and coming on the show and being my first guest to have fun with the different segments that we're doing. I didn't even warn you, but you were fair game. I loved it. And you did a good job with the 2 truths and a lie.
I love it, guys, man. I had so much fun with you. If we ever want to do it again, if anything weird financially ever comes up and you guys want to talk about something again, I am totally game, no matter what you are going to throw at me.
Perfect. Check it out. At the bottom, for anybody else, by the way, who wants to be a guest, I have a last minute guest list. So sometimes it happens. Life gets in the way. We have a guest lined up and they get sick or, they have to pick up their kids from school or whatever. Life happens. So if you want to be a guest on the show and you're willing to do it last minute, you will get an email from me. It might be 20 minutes before the show starts, but it's a first come, first serve basis. Go to businessbros.biz/last minute and welcome to the show. I'd love to do some spontaneous stuff all the time. And of course, just like Suzanne, I'm giving away a free book this time too. So for the month of June, I know I usually forget, but I got it this time.
Speaking of free books,
The Power of Podcasting is the ebook that we've written to help you guys get your podcast started. Look, prospecting is not the easiest thing in the world, but I just met Suzanne today, right here, live on the podcast, never before. And I probably wouldn't have met her if I didn't have this podcast. And that's what you guys can do for your particular business, your venture. Podcasting is the way of the future. So I want you guys to start your own podcast. You can do it for $0. So you don't have to worry about budgeting that, or maybe you can budget every dollar. And there you go. You add a 0 to something and you still have the same budget. So you're good to go. Power of Podcasting can change your life like it's changed ours. And get our free book, www.businessbros.biz/free pop. Cool. All right, James, I'm out of breath. I'm ready to rock and roll this joint.
All right, let's do it.
Ladies
Suzanne,
and gentlemen,
thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you.
And of course, SHIT, ladies and gents, so happy it's Thursday. That's all we got for you guys today. Peace.
Amen.
And we're out.
Thank you for listening to the Business Bros Podcast. Are you looking to get more clients or to increase your income? Hernan, the business bro, can help you generate referrals through the power of podcasting. And James, the insurance bro with Pipeline Insurance, can help you effectively add insurance to your existing business. If you are ready to create wealth today and generational wealth for tomorrow, email businessbros@seeusfirst.com to schedule a free consultation or join the Business Bros Network, www.businessbros.biz.